we had discussed in my previous lecture about alveoli. So the last point where I had left was type 2 alveolar cells. Alveoli consist of two type of cells. First is type 1 and second is type 2. So type 2 alveolar cells, the important function of type 2 alveolar cells are secretion of alveolar fluid and alveolar surfactant. So what is alveolar fluid and alveolar surfactant, and what is the role of alveolar surfactant in our human body? So next is alveolar surfactant. Alveolar surfactant here is concerned with lungs, so it is also known as pulmonary surfactant. The same thing, pulmonary surfactant. Now what are the sources of pulmonary surfactant? So its sources are, as it is clear that first source is type 2 alveolar cells. So type 2 alveolar cells. Type 2 alveolar cells, and second one is sclera cells. Sclera cells which are present in bronchioles. So these are about the sources from which alveolar fluid and alveolar surfactant release. Now the next point is, what is the chemistry of alveolar surfactant? So it consists of chemistry means its constituents. It consists of phospholipids, proteins, other lipids also, and ions. Now, formation of surfactant. Actually, surfactant is a surface acting material which is responsible for reducing the surface tension of alveolar membrane, surface tension of alveoli, and it is a film-like structure which spreads over entire alveoli. So, how it is formed? Formation of surfactant, actually it is formed from intracellular sources of alveoli, and intracellular sources, it has a special membrane bound organelles known as lamellar bodies. And lamellar bodies are membrane bound cell organelles. This lamellar bodies stores protein and lipids in inside it, and through exocytosis occurs here, and through exocytosis these laminar bodies release lipids and proteins. Lipids and proteins into alveolar fluid. And now, in the presence of phosphorus, calcium and proteins, phospholipids arrange into a lattice-like structure, which is called tubular myelin, known as tubular myelin, and this tubular myelin forms film. This tubular myelin forms film. And this film spreads over the entire surface to reduce surface tension of alveoli, to reduce surface tension of alveolar membrane. So this is the production of film or pulmonary surfactant through laminar bodies, exocytosis, release of lipids and proteins in alveolar fluid, and presence of phosphorus, calcium and proteins. Phospholipid arranges into a lattice-like structure which is known as tubular myelin, and this tubular myelin gives appearance of film, and this film spreads all over the surface. So this is about the formation of film or pulmonary surfactant. Now the question arises is, what are the functions of pulmonary surfactant? It plays an important role to maintain normal structure and normal functioning of lungs. So the next is function of pulmonary surfactant. The most important function is to reduce the surface tension of alveoli and alveolar membrane. Reduction of surface tension, it is the first or primary function. Surface tension of lungs, and you can say alveoli or alveolar membrane. And next point is, it stabilizes alveoli in lungs. So it stabilizes alveoli in lungs. Next is, it prevents lungs from collapsing. It prevents lungs from collapsing, and this is one of the important function. It prevents lungs from collapsing. So it protects lungs for developing diseases, because various diseases are produced due to collapsing of lungs, and it plays an important role to maintain the physiology of lungs. So it is also one of the important function. Next is, after birth, pulmonary surfactant plays an important role to stabilize alveoli in that neonates and from prevention from collapse. So after birth, because lungs become functional after birth only. So after birth, pulmonary surfactant prevent lungs from recurrent collapsing or frequent collapsing, because there is more chance of collapse in neonates. So it prevents lungs from collapsing in neonates. These are the important function of pulmonary surfactant. So this is all about pulmonary surfactant, and in my next lecture I will discuss pulmonary function test.